Alright, well, I think we've got the go-ahead to move forward. I believe everybody can hear me now, so we will get started. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for bearing with me as we hang out here in my living room for this little tutorial here today. My name is Bob Maglies. I'm a Burton guide over at the Burton headquarters store here in Burlington, Vermont. Through the past few years at the shop, I've picked up a couple tips and tricks that I want to share with you guys today about packing your gear up for off-season storage. Thanks again though, guys, for bearing with us here. I hope everybody is socially distancing well and staying happy and healthy out there and everybody's doing okay. I know it's tough to stay away from the mountains, but do the best you can. Just keep that 6 feet distance from people, and hopefully these tips and tricks give you some stuff to do around the house. Alright, so just a quick run through of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to first start off with cleaning and drying your gear. One thing that you need to make sure that you do just to make sure that it's ready to go for storage. After that, we're going to just talk about checking things for damages and making sure that there's no issues that are going to surprise you come next season when you take it out of the bag to go ride. After that, we'll run through some tuning tips too on just how to wax your board, how to take a peek at those edges and make sure everything looks good, is good, is ready to be stored away, and is not going to give you any issues when you take it out of the bag. After we go through tuning, we'll pack it all up into a bag and give you guys some storage tips after that. So we'll get started. First thing is cleaning and drying your board. So good thing to do now is just make sure that you've got that household cleaner handy. I'm going to grab my Clorox wipes real quick. Sure, a lot of you guys at home have these things handy during this situation we've got going on in the world right now. So we're going to start off by just cleaning up the board. If you're like me, you probably have some dirt, some grime, some just gunk on that board from those last few days out on the hill. We're going to want to get all of that off of there, make sure this board is nice and dry, and get started. Before we even actually jump into wiping and cleaning the board, one thing I forgot to mention is taking those bindings off. Actually, already did the screwing for you guys, so took the bindings off so that they're ready to rumble for you here. You can just set those to the side for now. A couple things that are useful to have for taking the bindings off is simply put an EST tool. We sell these right from Burton.com. You can pick one up. It's a handy tool just to have in your pocket. Good to have around all season long, as well as just at the end of the season too, if you're taking that stuff off and packing it away. This is included right in the Mountain Essentials kit, which is what you'll see right here on the table here. It's got a couple different things that we'll jump into a little bit later when we get into the actual tuning side of the board. But EST tool, great to get those screws right off and get those bindings off the board. Once you've got those off, next thing to do is just make sure that you took those channel inserts out. It's what this bottom little piece of the screw set looks like right here. This little channel insert. Make sure you get those out of the channel. You don't want to leave those things in there. If they're sliding around, it can damage the channel over time. So once that's all done, we'll jump back into cleaning right where we started. So any household cleaner is usually okay for this. You can use Clorox, you can use a Lysol wipe, you can use isopropyl alcohol, anything like that is going to be okay for this. Something with a little more degreasing can help as well, depending on how much dirt and grime you have built up on that board. But we're just going to give the top sheet a nice rub. Make sure we don't have anything left on there to surprise us come opening day. Get that all wiped down. Once you get the top sheet nice and clean, good thing to do is actually just kind of fold up that napkin slightly, or just that towel, whatever you're using to clean, and get your channel too. Something that is missed here and there. It's just one of those things that people overlook, but it is something with that dirt and grime up in there. You might have issues getting that insert in and out of the board later on too. So, get that last channel too. Alright, top sheet's clean, moving on to the base. So we'll flip it around, put them down right onto these tuning vices. Another handy tool to have around the house as well. We do sell these things as well. right from Burton.com too. Tuning vices, simple as that. Really sturdy, easy to put on any tables. Definitely a good thing to add to the tuning quiver at home. We're going to go right ahead, wipe that base down too. We're going to show you this on one side of the board, just because I'm going to wax the other side and I don't want to have to worry about waiting for this to dry. But it does actually happen pretty easily once you do the edges first. Alright. Once you clean that base off and make sure that you got all the grime off of that, go ahead and get the rest of it too. I'm going to have to pack this thing up. Alright, so dirt and grime is off of the board. Thanks folks for hanging in. Alright, so board is cleaned, base is looking good, top sheet's looking good too. Now, one thing to just to make sure is that it's dry. Good thing to do is have a rag handy if you've got a bunch of these around the house. Generally, this is something that you want to do that last day after you go riding. Bring it in from outside, bring it in from the car, put it in the corner of your room, put it on tile, somewhere to allow that water to drip off of the board. This is usually something you do right before cleaning. Don't sweat it too much. If you forgot to do this at this step, cleaning it and then just making sure it's dry before storage is a good thing to do. So, go ahead, for picture's sake, I'm going to give it a little wipe down, just make sure that all that Clorox and everything is dry before we move forward. Alright, everything is dry. So, we're going to take a peek and check everything for damage. So you're just going to want to do this just to make sure, again, no surprises come when you take that board out of storage. One thing to take a look at, inspect the top sheet, see if you have any cracks in the top sheet. No cracks, good to go. Next place to check is going to be your edges. Just make sure that you don't see any separation from the metal edge to the side wall of your board. Just give it a good look up and down. Be careful of the metal edges as they can be sharp. Alright, nothing bad there. Nothing bad there either. All the way down, check the tail. Check the nose. We're looking good. Alright, so now we're going to want to check the edges and see if there's any burrs or any nicks in the metal edges. This is a good thing to do because you're going to want to make sure that you take those out of there. Not only to help you keep yourself sliding smooth when opening day comes around, but also to make sure that it doesn't actually gather any rust or have any issues when it's going into storage for the summer. So now we will flip it right up and make note of which side is up and which side is down, because you do want to do this from top to bottom. Slides right into the vices sideways, just like that. Handy tool to have at this step is going to be a file guide. Some out there may know of diamond stones and gummy stones. We'll jump into that in a second as well. But for this purpose, the Mountain Essentials kit has just about everything that you need. We've got our file guide here, as seen in my left hand. This you can actually pick up separately, or you can get it in the Mountain Essentials kit. Either way you want to go about it. So alright, comes with a file, and the Mountain Essentials kit specifically will also come with a ceramic stone. Also useful for that extra tuning piece as well. So, we'll start off checking that edge for nicks and burrs. Before we actually go ahead and file it, get that rag that you had handy before. Gonna be useful to do. I like to use a little rag to check for this, just so that you don't accidentally cut your hands or have any issues. So you take the rag, run it right down that edge, and you'll kind of feel those snags almost in the actual fabric of the towel. And you're going to want to try to get those things out of there. So I went bottom to top, but going top to bottom. You can feel those snags. We'll do one edge for you guys today here. The other edge we will save for time's sake. But for your file guide, pretty easy to use. Give me just one sec. mind checking that phone for Facebook? All right, so we're gonna jump in and hit that one edge. Getting some feedback that the Facebook stream's not coming through right, so give me just 1 second. I'm just gonna take a peek for you guys. How are we looking? We're looking good. Thanks for bearing with us, guys. All right, so tuning your edges. So first we're gonna use our file guide, and we're gonna actually just take off a little layer of that metal and sharpen those edges. File guides will come standard at that 90-degree angle. It's what comes standard when you buy that board from a shop or when you buy it from the Burton.com website. The tuning piece that we have here, super easy to use. It's actually really nice as well since you can do the side edge as well as the base edge. Just pops in a little differently. So if you want to do, for instance, this top edge, what you're going to want to do, tuck that file in, make sure the teeth are going top to bottom when you put it in. There we go. Alright, make sure the teeth are pointing in the right direction. You want the teeth to point towards where you're going to be sliding the file guide to. When tossing it in, you can see I put it nice and flat right in there. So when I lock that piece down, it's going to have that edge right on there. What you can do is take this, put it right on there. Never go back and forth. You always want to go in one direction for this. Always top to bottom. So starting at the top, and we'll just run it right down. See those snags? It did have some nicks and some damage on those edges. I know some of you are asking how much should you tune your edges? That is a good question. Honestly, not that much. A lot of people don't tune their edges too often. Reason being is when you do tune your edges, you're taking off a layer of that metal on the edge. And what that's doing is sharpening the edge, but it's also shrinking that edge. So if you do it too much, you can eventually run out of metal edge, which is never a good thing. Definitely don't need to do it too much either. You don't want to cut your hand carrying the board or anything like that. A little bit goes a long way in regards to sharpening your edges. So once we did that side edge, we're then going to take the file out. We're going to turn it just to make sure that the teeth are facing the right direction. So, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put it in, and you can see how you see more of that file now. You want it to be facing up, so that when you're looking at the file guide, it has a nice, easy 90 degree, nice and simple. This will allow that metal file to be on the side that is actually going to be against the base of the board. So once again, starting from the top, give it a little run down. You can stop and start somewhere on the edge, but never go backwards. You can actually damage the file, and files cannot actually be repaired. You will have to get a new file at that point. And you also don't want to have any issues with the metal edge. So, run that down the length. Alright, so we gave it 2 runs over on that metal edge. Now you're going to want to grab that ceramic stone. Nice part about this kit is that the Mountain Essentials kit does come with the file as well as the ceramic stone, and the ceramic stone is the right size to fit into your guide. So you can toss it right in there just like you would with the file. Tuck it in, I'll get the base edge. Alright, so base edge is dialed. We'll turn it around. And we'll get the side edge as well. Alright, if you're just using the ceramic stone, good thing to do is actually dip it in a little water just to help prevent the heat and keep it sliding nice and smooth over top of the board. Ceramic stone, generally designed to keep your edge and keep it fast and basically keep it sharp for longer. Not necessarily designed to actually sharpen your edge, but instead actually just keep it so that it's nice and sharp for a little bit longer. Good thing to use in the meantime, instead of sharpening your edge again with the file, just use the ceramic stone to keep it nice and sharp after you go riding a couple times. It's also a good thing that you can use to take off a little bit of rust on that edge as well. You can just kind of hit it over those kind of rust areas just to kind of pull a little off. I know rust tends to be a common issue across a lot of people. Something that you can do to fight that rust is a gummy stone. It's something that Burton doesn't make themselves, but it is a useful tool. It comes in soft as well as hard. The soft gummy stone is what you'd be looking for if you're going to be trying to take any rust off of the actual edges. That gummy stone, you don't actually need to go one direction. That you can go actually kind of across the board and kind of up and down that edge to make sure to get the rust spots. So we got that edge tuned up. Talked about the gummy stone too in regards to taking off those, taking off that rust on the actual board on that edge. The soft gummy stone, good for taking the rust off. The hard gummy stone is something that's actually a little bit better for taking the nicks and the burrs off. If you have to have a choice between the two, I'd say go with the hard gummy stone. You can take the rust off as well as deburr those edges as well. So once you tidied up that edge, go right ahead, grab that rag that you had before, just go over it real quick. What you're doing is you're just going to get any little metal shavings off of that board and off of that base before actually going ahead and waxing it. So, got the metal file done, edges are nice and sharp, deburred to help prevent rust and keep it sliding smooth. Now we are on to actually waxing that board. So waxing the board and getting it ready for storage. Doesn't really matter what type of wax you use. We make 3 blends ourselves here at Burton. We make a fast wax, which you'll notice is a green consistency. It's a hydrocarbon wax. We also make a faster wax, which blends in a little bit of fluoride in there too, just to give you that little extra boost. That's what I have in my hands here, the faster wax. You'll notice it a darker color, but the same shape as the fast wax. We also make fastest wax. Don't usually recommend fastest wax for storage waxing, as it does come in a smaller package and is a little higher fluorinated. Definitely helps you move really fast on the snow, but not always the best for storing. Doesn't necessarily matter what temperature wax you use either. Generally, we recommend an all-temp or a warm weather wax, something that's going to kind of be able to withstand kind of the summer's temperatures. But at the same time, key is to make sure that you use a good amount of it. So we'll go ahead and I'll show you guys actually how to drip this wax onto the board. Couple things that you'd want at this step is what I have in my hands. An iron, you can pick these up from a lot of retailers. Block of wax, board to wax. Tuning vices help, but not necessarily needed for this process. But we're gonna go ahead. I preheated up my iron so it's ready to go for you guys. We're just gonna do a small section on here. I won't waste your time in doing the whole board right now. But you take the wax, take the heated up iron, and you're gonna touch that wax to it. If you notice any smoke at this step and you see that wax actually smoking, you're going to want to turn down the heat on that iron. A good practice is to always just kind of heat up your iron to a medium temperature. You never need to get it that hot. You don't want to burn the base of your board when you actually do put that iron on there. But we're going to go ahead, we're going to drip that wax down. I like to do little circles on the iron, just helps push the wax around. Feel free to be nice and generous with this too. This board is going to be going away for the long haul, and what this wax does for it is it's going to hydrate your board. Just like how you need water in the summertime, your board needs wax, or this thing's going to be dried out and super slow when you do take it out. I like to go right off the bat, right by the edges. Nice up and down, and then get some dripped all around. Turn that heat up just a little bit. Now's a good time for those soothing music, crack a cold one while you're waxing, whatever you like to do. Alright, and once you have a good lather of wax on there, I'll hold this up too so you can see about how much I use. But feel free to be generous with it. If it's dripping too fast, feel free to turn the heat down. If it's not dripping fast enough, turn that heat up. You can also take the wax and just kind of rub it on there when you're done with the wax, just to make sure there's no excess drips. And set my iron down so you guys can see about how much I threw on there. Just did a little corner of the board there, but you can see a good amount of wax, lather it right over. Honestly, the more the better at this point in time. So, get back on there. Now we're going to heat that wax up and smear it around on the board. So when putting the iron on the board, no need to apply any pressure. You can do it just kind of light and just kind of bring it right around. You can kind of brush stroke across just to kind of heat up that wax. My personal favorite practice is to do little circles. Little circles just help to, once that wax heats up, spread it around and just kind of make sure you're pushing it all over the board. You want to coat the entire board, every inch of it. Get that whole board nice and heated up, nice and soaking that wax in. You also want to push this wax over top of your edge. You want to kind of cover that edge with wax, just like why we deburred it to prevent that rust. This is going to help do exactly the same. Keep that edge nice and ready to go for opening day. So you can see, smearing it around, making sure it gets all the way to the side and pushing the wax over the top of the edge. Just making sure I smear that wax nice and evenly and don't leave any spots. We'll be leaving a couple spots, but it's because we're not going to wax the whole thing right here, right now. We're just going to get a little section of it here. Alright. Make sure I didn't have any spots. Good tip trick at this point, if you're unsure if you've hit a spot with wax, obviously let it cool, don't touch it right away. But I like to use the fingernail trick. You just take your fingernail and just kind of scrape it right on the board. If you do start to get a little bit of wax underneath your fingernail, you hit that spot. Sometimes it might not look like there's necessarily a lot of wax on there, but you might have some on it. So it's a good little tip trick just to make sure that you do actually have some wax on there. So I smeared this out. We got it nice and over top of the edge. Go ahead and set your file down somewhere nice and safe so that you don't burn the place down. And get any cat hair out of it. Sorry about that, guys. I'll hold this up so you can see. It is only in one portion of the board for video purposes, but you can see I smeared that wax right over top of that edge just to make sure that we keep a nice, safe, protective layer on there through the summer. So at this point, once you've lathered that board with wax, you've smeared it out, you've covered every inch of that board, let it sit, let it cool for a little bit. You don't want to throw it right in the bag, you don't want to risk burning your bag or kind of getting any bag material stuck to your base. At this point, let it hang for a minute, and you can kind of get everything else together in the meantime. So we'll set this just to the side for now. Alright, now is a good time to kind of check your other gear while you're waiting for that wax to dry. We did check the board for damage, but it's a good time now to check your boots as well as your bindings too. Check your goggles, check your jackets, make sure that you check every piece of gear so you don't have any surprises. So first, grab a binding, just make sure all your screws look alright. Make sure your buckles still are in functioning order. Make sure the straps look down, no issues there. 4, check your base plate, make sure there's not any cracks or any damages. If you do have any issues, now is a good time to hit up warranty. I know they're closed right now during the quarantine, but as soon as they open back up, it's just a good thing to keep in mind so that you can get that gear to them. They're always a little slower in the summertime too, so it's a good time to kind of get that stuff dialed and get those repairs done if need be. So screws look alright, everything looks in functioning order there. Check the other binding too. Alright. Another thing to do is grab your boots. You're not going to want to put these away wet and stinky, or else they're going to be really nasty when you take them out for that first day on hill. So you're going to go ahead, I took the liberty of doing it ahead of time, pull your liners out, pull your footbeds out of there, you can just set them all out to dry. So for instance, I mean, you could do the table. Some people like to put these things out in the sunshine, let it dry in the sun, let the warmth just kind of heat it up and dry it. If you've got any dirt and grime on your actual footbed, you can take a Clorox wipe to it just so that it's not rubbing around on anything else. wipe down any other dirt and debris that you might have on those boots. Set them off to the side to dry. On that note, I did forget, inspect for damage on your boots as well. Make sure you don't have any nicks in your laces. Make sure your laces all look alright. These poor things have been beaten up a little bit, but still in functioning order, and the laces are all okay. If you have any nicks or any burrs in the laces, for Speed Zone laces, you can actually hit up Burton.com. We do sell Speed Zone lace kits. You can actually go right on there. It comes with a tool that you need to install the laces, as well as 2 laces, both an upper and a lower zone, so that you can really just get those things patched up. Good summer project, easy to do at home. There's some tutorials online if you're interested as well. I won't go too deep into actually putting the laces into a boot. If you're unsure about it, pick up the set and keep it in your gear bag so that you can just bring it into a shop or bring it by a shop once they open back up after the quarantine, and they'll help you out as well. You can also inspect your liner lace as well. Make sure there's no nicks or burrs in that. You can get replacements right from the Burton Guides team if you do call in if you need any of that hardware, or hit up your local shop once everything opens back up again. So boots look good. Boots are out drying. Bindings all look good as well. Another thing just to jump into is goggles. So a lot of you just shove it right into a goggle bag right after you're done. Keep it safe. Keep it from getting any scratches. It's good practice. When you're setting it away for storage though, you also want to make sure that this stuff's dried too. You don't want kind of a moldy, mildewy foam on the inside of your goggles when you take it out of the bag come fall. So for instance, take your goggles, set the bag out to dry itself as well. Take your lenses off if you have the magnetic technology on there. You can set them right aside. Let them sit to dry. Put them on the kitchen table. This is actually my kitchen table. If you just want to make sure you put them somewhere safe. So put them somewhere that the cat's not going to knock them off the table while they're drying. Or dog's not going to eat them while they're drying, anything like that. Just make sure you put them somewhere safe to dry. Those goggle lenses are fragile. Well, not too fragile. They can stand some pretty nasty spills. You've probably taken some nasty spills in them yourself. Good time to take care of them now. So, for instance, I've already let this stuff dry for the purposes, so we'll toss it back in. Make sure, wrap that goggle up. I always like to make sure that there's nothing in the bag too. You didn't leave any surprises in there for yourself when you throw that goggle in and then scratch up your lenses. So, but once you check the bag, tuck the goggles in. And good way to store these in a bag, it's going to be right inside of your helmet. So good practice, take your goggles, if you tuck them right inside of the helmet, it's just going to help protect them so that when they're actually in that gear bag, you don't have anything bump into it, anything scratch the lenses, you don't have any issues when you take them out of the pack. So while the board's drying as well, or not necessarily drying, but letting the wax cool down, a couple good bags that Burton makes for storing things is the multi-path duffel. This is one of my personal favorites. It comes in a variety of different sizes too. You've got anything from a 40 liter, 60 liter, which is what's in my hands, as well as a 90 liter. My personal favorite is the 90 liter. End up getting a lot of stuff through the years: beanies, hats, gloves, jackets, pants. A 90 liter duffel is going to give you all that space that you need to store everything in there. If you've got a family or a kiddo that's riding as well, 90 liter bags are great because they're going to help to give you that extra space that you need. It even has a little wet dry pocket right on the side as well for those boots to toss right in. Great bags to have around all season long, whether spring, summer, or packing your gear up for winter. Besides that, storing your board, probably the best thing to do is to use a board bag. So board bag, what that's going to do is it's going to help to keep that board safe from anything kind of bumping into it. But not only that, it's also going to keep it away from direct sunlight. So that's one big thing to make sure that you do is keep that bag out of direct sun. So no matter where you store this board, whether you put it under your bed, you put it in the side of the room, make sure that there's no direct sunlight on it. It can actually damage the top sheet of the board. It can also damage the integrity of the board. So I'm just going to pack a few things up real quick, tuck it all right back into my Mountain Essentials kit. Another handy thing while we're on that is channel plugs. If you're missing them out of your board, now's a good time. Hit up burton.com, pick up a new set of those channel plugs. You can get them in a variety of different colors, different designs. This one's got a little tree and a process on it. Pretty fun design. Good things to have is backups. What they do is they help keep dirt and debris out of your channel when you're riding and throughout the season. They don't necessarily affect the ride if they fall out, but it's good to have them in there just to keep that dirt and debris out. We'll tuck that right back in. And move that out of the way. The iron out of the way there too. And sport bag. Alright. So throw up. This guy here is going to be our gig bag. We do make anything on the cheaper side of things, the space sack. This is that next step right up from there. Comes in wheels, or with wheels, or without wheels. Don't necessarily need the wheels for storing, but it is a nice handy thing to have when you are going through airports with it. It's good to have the wheels on there, helps it roll nice and easily. They come in a variety of different sizes, so just make sure you get the one that matches up with the size board that you have. Board bag of a 156 size, sometimes goes all the way up to a size 159. For instance, this is a 157 that we're going to be tossing into this gig bag 156. The gig bag is nice because it is the next step where it gives you padding. So the actual board bag itself has a little bit of padding to it, just to kind of keep anything from bumping into it and damaging the products. Space Sack does not. Going up from this, there's also the board case as well as the wheelie locker. Those two are just going to give you a little bit more organization as well as wheels and some extra features just to help you keep everything in the right spot. So for this sake, we're going to pack this board bag up. You can, at this step, put the bindings back on if you'd like. If you do put the bindings back on the board at this step, just make sure you don't tighten the screws down too much. Generally, you want to keep them a little looser just so you don't get any dimples in the actual top sheet or in the board. It just makes everything so that it all is right the way you left it come summer or come fall, I guess, in that regards. So for this sake, I'm going to keep the bindings off. And we're just going to tuck the board right in. All right. Tucks right in. Nice thing about board bags is they not only house your board, but they will also house, nestled right in there, they can also house all your other gear too. If you are tossing in, like, make sure that the boots are dry before you pack those things away. Make sure everything's dry before you put it in that bag is the big thing. Make sure it's clean and make sure you checked it for damages. Once you have done that, for instance, this bag, really nice too, it has a top pocket on there as well. Top pocket's useful for storing any extra pieces in there, like your screws, your hardware, anything like that. Take the bindings, put those in there as well. I'd be aware, depending on where you're going to be storing these, you want to make sure that these aren't sliding around inside of that bag, scratching up your board in the meantime. I like to just tuck them right in the end, and then I put my boots right on top and just make sure I don't shake the bag or anything when actually moving it. Other thing you can do too is just put the board right back in its original sleeve, and then put it in there just to keep it scratch free. You can also just toss some t-shirts over top of the board is another good option. Any extra rags you got around the house too, just to lay a protective coating over top of it. And then start packing things in. So if you kept the screws out, for instance, you can toss them into a small bag. We do make something like our Burton accessory case is a really nice tool for this, a really nice minor pack to have around. You can keep tools, you can keep the screws, everything in one place. You just want to make sure that you know where this stuff is. So when you pack it away, it's not a scavenger hunt. Come fall, come opening day, when you're going riding tomorrow and you're like, where's that last screw? Now's a good time also just to kind of take into effect and get new screws. So screws do wear out over time on your boards. Some of you may notice that the bindings slip or shimmy sometimes. Generally that's actually caused from the Loctite wearing out on your screws. The Loctite is a special blend that we have on our screws though. So the screws themselves, on them, you'll notice a little bar going down on the screw. If the screw's brand new, you'll see a little kind of almost blue colored bar. If not, you might see it just kind of smoothed out through the actual screw threads. This special blend of Loctite doesn't break down your screws, or doesn't break down plastic. So you won't have any issues with it affecting actually your base plates. But if you do go to the hardware store, some people think it's okay, grab some blue Loctite, toss it right on there and screw it down and it helps hold it in place. That stuff that you buy at the hardware store can break down plastics. And it can actually break down your base plate and the actual kind of disc in your binding, causing it to crack. Not a good thing, you definitely don't want that to happen. Just hit up your local shop, grab some fresh screws, or go to burton.com. They sell EST as well as reflex screws right from the website. Pick some up, toss it in the pack so that when you're ready to go for next season, you can pull it right out and have some brand new screws ready to go for yourself. For instance, once it's all ready to go, you can tuck it all right into the bag. Tuck bindings just right on the end. Generally, you want to try to wrap these up in something. Your outerwear jacket is key. Actually, just going to go ahead and just do that right now so that we do it. Before you throw the jacket in your bag too, you just want to make sure that that also has dried. Wrap the bindings right up in there so that they're nice and safe. Tuck it right in. You can start to zip one corner. You can see these things do have a lot of storage in them. Next up would be your boots. So you can get those boots in there too. Once those are all dry, that's when you want to do this. Don't do it when they're still stinky. Well, they'll always be stinky, but at the same time, just make sure they're dry. Good thing to do at this time is actually lace up your boots. A, it's going to save you some space and give you more room in that board bag when you're packing your gear in. B, it's going to help your boots keep the shape that they are designed to have. So it's going to keep and extend the boot's integrity and extend the life of your boots as well. Just pulling up those speed zone laces. Don't have to over tighten it, just tighten it up. Tuck the speed zone handles back in. If you've got BOA boots, do the same thing, just tighten them up. And you can tuck those right into the board bag as well. Just like how they probably came packed in your box. Tighten these up. And nestle that one right down. Right into, right on top of the board. So now with the extra space, you can toss your gloves, you can toss in that helmet with your goggles. Just be mindful, maybe put a beanie on top of the goggles inside of your helmet, or put the goggles inside of a beanie and then in your helmet. Another good way to just add a protective layer on there and make sure that everything's staying safe through the summertime. Toss that right in there too. Once it's all in, zip that thing up. Helmet's a little bulky in there. You can kind of shift it around, make sure you've got a good spot. Board is packed up. So, couple extra tips at this point. If you did take those screws out of your board, keep them in a safe place. When you take the bindings off of your board, another good thing to do is just make note of your stance angles. A little trick tip is grab some painter's tape. You can actually just write your stance right onto that painter's there, and that you'll always remember your stance when you pull this bag out of the closet come fall, come opening day. So where do I put this? It's a good question. Most of you, if you are in a small one-bedroom apartment, can be a little tricky to find some space. Under the bed is okay. Like I had mentioned before, just make sure it's out of direct sunlight. So if it's out of direct sunlight, it's not going to get that sun damage. You also want to make sure it's in a cool, dry place. I know some of you have also asked, do I store it indoors or do I store it in the garage? Try to avoid the garage. It's not temperature regulated. It can cause everything to heat up in there. It can get really cold on those cold nights. You want to take care of this thing. You want to make sure that it's ready to ride and last you for years and years to come. So once it's ready to go, put it under the bed, but make sure there's no pressure on top of the actual board bag. You want to keep that board's bend. That's one of the biggest things, is you don't actually want to stack a bunch of stuff up on top of it. Don't use it as a table in the summertime. Try to stand your board up on its edge if you can. By doing that, I'll just kind of simulate. Just standing up right on its edge keeps the board bend from actually bending in the bag, keeps any issues from arising in that regard. As you can see, I use behind my couch as a nice storage spot. It's a good place to put your boards, good way to look at them all summer long too. If you do this, similar to making sure there's no pressure on your board's bend, make sure you're not damaging that rocker or that camber. Just make sure you don't push the couch up against them. I like to use a little bit of poster putty. Just put a little poster putty right on the base, push it right against the wall to keep the boards from sliding side to side. And as you can see, no issues actually in regards to the couch against them. Just another good thing to do. So once it's packed up, you've got a good cool, dry place to keep this thing in, somewhere that's going to be a little more temperature regulated, aka inside. Go ahead, get that thing set aside, get it put in its place, and crack a cold one. Bust out your skateboard, get the mountain bike out of the garage, turn some screws, making sure everything is nice and tight on those things, and get ready for those summer adventures ahead. In the meantime, enjoy your social isolation and just make sure that you're staying healthy out there and washing your hands, guys. Hope you picked something up from this tutorial here today. And that you got something out of this. And thank you guys for tuning in to my living room. I guess I will try to answer a couple questions that I think had come across on the channels now, just to kind of help to make sure there's no issues there. So, is it enough to loosen the screws on your bindings, or should you take them off? Good question. You can just leave the screws loosened. You just don't want to leave them super tight. As you saw before, I did pack the bindings in there, just wrapped up in my outerwear jacket, just to keep them nice and safe. But you can just keep them loose. Make sure the bindings aren't sliding up and down on that channel. You don't actually want those channel inserts rubbing on the inside of the channel too much. If it is kind of just like loose but tight and it's gripping on the channel, you might scratch the inside of the channel, damaging it. So, personal recommendation, take them off. It's nice and easy to do. Takes just a little extra time. If it's easier for you, you can keep them on there too. Another question that came up, should I wax my snowboard before or after the season? Great question. Both. Do them at both. It's not going to really cause any issues. It also depends on what temperature wax you used. So if you used, for instance, an all-temp wax, you should be good to go. Pull that board out, give it a scrape, take that excess wax off, hit it with a brush, and then you should be good to go riding. To show you what a scraper and that brush look like, jump right back in. I'll show you this Mountain Essentials kit. You can buy this thing right from Burton.com or other retailers out there as well. Comes with everything you need. Besides just the two stones, the guide and the ceramic stone, comes with a scour pad. Something like a Scotch-Brite is good to take that excess wax off after scraping it with something like a scraper. This is just a tiny credit card scraper that comes in the kit, but you can also get a tri-scraper right from Burton.com too. Besides that, this kit actually also does come with a couple of screws and a small block of wax as well. It's actually right on there, so that you have everything that you need. So back to the temperature of the wax that you used. Depends on what you'll need to do when you take it out. So wax it after the season, get it nice and hydrated like we did. Give it a protective coat to keep anything from damaging that base and keeping it from drying out. And then once you're ready to go for the next season, scrape it, brush it, and your board should be ready to ride. Just don't forget to take that wax off of the edges too, or else you're going to have a nice slippery time out there, I guess you could say. I have rust on my edges from forgetting to wipe it down. How can I fix it before storing it? This is something that I had mentioned with the gummy stone. That's a great thing to grab and just have in your quiver. It's probably the best practice for taking rust off of the edges. That soft gummy stone is what you're looking for. What it does is it's just a little softer and helps to get that rust and just kind of grime off of the edges. Or a hard gummy stone is more meant to take the nicks and the burrs out of it. Besides that, you can also use the ceramic stone too. It's another thing that you can use for it. Not designed to do it, but it is a good helpful tool that can help take that rust and stuff off of those edges as well. So let's jump into the next question. I hope I answered that. If not, reach out and I'll try to do my best to help. Should you wax your board more than once throughout the summer? Nah, just once is that you covered it top to bottom. No need to take it out halfway through the season, scrape and wax again. Should be ready to go all the way through those summer months until opening day. Another thing, my new Burton board is only 3 months old. Do I still need to prep it for storage? Depends on how much you rode it, but overall, yeah, it doesn't hurt. I mean, if you want to prolong the life of that gear and make sure that that board lasts you as long as you'd like it to, it's a good thing to practice. As you become a more experienced rider and pick up other boards too, it's just a good practice to have. Keeps everything ready to ride, so no matter when opening day comes around, it's ready to go. Does wax type matter? Not necessarily either. An all temp or a warm weather wax is what we would recommend. It's something that does affect the ride once you take it out of storage. So if you use a warm temp wax, what you're going to want to do when you scrape that wax off, wax it again with the right temperature wax so that you'll be sliding as quick as possible out there. Like I said before, it's a nice thing that Burton only makes all temp wax. So whichever one you pick up, the faster, fastest, donut, maple, or cheddar, all of those are actually going to work out well for any type of temperature that you encounter. I believe that's all the questions that I have time to answer for you guys today, but I appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope everybody out there is staying happy and healthy out there. If you're getting in a couple more laps this season, make sure to stay socially isolated in the sense of keeping your distance. And see you out there in the summertime after the quarantines pass. Thank you guys for tuning in.